Hi, guys. I hope we are all doing well for today. We are going to discuss another very important lesson of understanding the self, and that is the unpacking the self. And with that, let me ask you these questions. Do you know yourself fully? Do you accept yourself as to who and what you are? How are you as a student at the same time as a son or a daughter, a kuya or an ate, or as a student parent, or as a working student parent? So you see, our self has been doing a lot of several roles, and definitely many of us are very stretched, and because we are too occupied, and so we are feeling stressed and possibly even very guilty of being too hard on ourselves for doing so much for ourselves also. So there's actually a lot of unpacking that is going on in us, but not the usual unpacking that we know of, rather unpacking in the sense of demystifying terms and parts of ourself, breaking down into a concept and explaining our overinflated thoughts, because um we really have to strenuously and meticulously scrutinize separately ourself and its different parts, which are our physical and extended self, our sexual self, our material or the economic self, as well as our spiritual self and our political self, and also our digital self. So, in this way, we will be seeing ourselves in different angles, and we will be examining ourselves more deeply concerning the internal and the external factors that influence us as an individual with a very critical outlook. This lesson hopes that we will develop a better understanding and a better appreciation of ourselves, and at the same time embrace the diversity of identities, expressions, and beliefs of other people in this modern world, and also on the different aspects of the physical self, which is both the body and the extended self, and develop respect for the people belonging to the minority groups with very different physical mandates, and understand the importance of culture vis-a-vis the physical characteristics. Okay, so let us now specifically discuss the first part of unpacking ourselves, and that is the physical self. So, in this section, actually, this identifies and explains the biological and environmental factors that shape the physical self. It also delves into social cultural issues associated with the physical well being. So, just a very, very quick recap. When we talk about physical self, it is actually of two components, the biological and also the environmental conditioning of the self. So when we say biological, it has something to do with our biological blueprint, and that is actually how the physical self is being shaped. That is based on our biological components. Okay, so when we say biological aspects, it has something to do with these different concepts such as heredity, genotype, phenotype, the DNA, and the maturation. So, what are these things? I think you were able to talk about it way back in your earlier years of studies, like when you were in perhaps a biology class in high school. But just a very quick recap, as I've mentioned. So when we say heredity, it is defined as the transmission of traits from the parents to the offspring. And then the traits are made up of specific information that are actually embedded within one's genes. Now, when we say genotype, also, it refers to the specific information that is embedded within one's genes. But please let us remember that not all genotypes translate to an observed physical characteristics. Now, when we talk about phenotype, it is actually the physical expression of a particular trait. Now, we know for a fact that each individual carries the 23 pairs of chromosomes, so which are actually a thread-like bodies in the nucleus of the cell and the storage unit actually of all our genes. Now, these 23 pair, also known as the sex chromosomes, determines the sex of an individual. Now, within each chromosomes is the deoxyribonucleic acid, or also commonly known as the DNA, which is a nucleic acid that contains the genetic instructions specifying the biological development of every individual. And of course, lastly, the maturation, which is known as the completion of the growth, and it is actually the final stage of a genetic character within an organism, or the basic unfolding of an individual's inherent traits, or the individual's potentials. So those are the biological components of the physical self. Another important aspect of the physical self is the environmental conditioning. As you grow up, you are exposed to environmental influences that shape your physical self, including those from social networks, societal expectations, and cultural practices. So, family, being your first social group, forms a crucial foundation of your development, including that of your physical self. So as you grow older, you get exposed to a larger social group with different new practices and standards. And as a result, you may begin engaging in acts that would make you attractive and acceptable to others at the same time. One aspect of physical self is the physical beauty, and it is a person's body type also. So contemporary media has portrayed slim bodies as the ideal body type for women and muscular bodies for men. Thus, adolescents indulge in activities that would enable them to achieve this ideal body types. However, some adolescents may resort to unhealthy habits just to achieve the ideal body type. So, it is important to remember that physical beauty is only skin deep, that what matters is feeling good about oneself and embracing a healthy perception of one's physical worth. Now, we have to elaborate this topic, as it is imperative for us to be able to learn and understand more of our physical self and our extended self. So, what is physical self? Actually, the physical self concept is the individual's perception of themselves in areas of physical ability, and, of course, with the physical appearance at the same time. With the physical ability, it includes the concepts such as our physical strength and our endurance, while appearance obviously refers to our being attractive, to our body image, and not just an ordinary body image. It has to be perfect in a sense that we have to abide with our society's culture of what is the perfect body image. So that is quite scary, and that is why we really have to talk more about it, so that we could really not just dig deeper, but we have to fully understand what it is and how it is to be really beautiful, and how it is to have the perfect body image, if not the perfect holistic and a great physical concept of ourself. Now, we will start that one with the different philosophical perspectives of beauty. So, what is the philosophy of beauty? What is the philosophy of beauty? Actually, the nature of beauty is one of the most enduring and controversial themes in Western philosophy, and it is with the nature of art at the same time one of the two fundamental issues in philosophical aesthetics. And beauty has been traditionally a fundamental issues in philosophical aesthetics. Also, beauty has been counted among the ultimate values with goodness in it and with truth in it and even justice. So, according to Socrates, by account of Xenophon, Socrates found beauty congruent with that which was defined as the morally good. In short, he thought that beauty must coincide with the good. Similarly, one may ask, what did Plato say about beauty? So, actually, beauty is a subject of Plato's work in Symposium. And according to Plato, beauty here is conceived as perfect unity, or indeed as the principle of unity itself. So, Plato's beauty theory, as it appears in the Symposium, holds that the beautiful is an objective quality which is more or less intensified and exemplified by beautiful or less beautiful objects, respectively. Then, of course, we will ask, what does Aristotle says about beauty? Now, according to Aristotle, he said the chief forms of beauty are order and symmetry, which is definiteness. And he claimed that uh, the signs prove this wherever you look. So he found a great beauty in the golden ratio, which is a mathematical formula found all over nature, such as the growing of the cells and even our human body. Now, another very important philosophical perspective is from a Neoplatonic philosopher in the name of Plotinus, and he provided two main contributions to guide the medieval thinking on aesthetics. First, Plotinus made it clear that beauty chiefly applies to the sense of sight and hearing, which was maintained in the Middle Ages. So, this notion is not only a contribution to a theory of beauty, but it delineates the two senses as having primacy over the others of acquisition of knowledge. And beauty for the medieval philosophers was frequently connected with knowledge. So, the second one is that Plotinus argued against the notion that proportion is the primary component of beauty. So almost everyone declares that symmetry of parts towards each other and towards a whole, with besides a certain charm of color, the beauty recognized by the eye, that in visible things, as indeed in all else universally, the beautiful thing is essentially symmetrically patterned. So, Plotinus proceeds to argue that simple things could not be beautiful if symmetry was the only component of beauty. In other words, only compound things could be beautiful in a proper sense. if beauty depended on symmetry. Moreover, only the whole object would be beautiful, not its parts. So the problem here for Plotinus is that if something is beautiful, it must be composed of beautiful parts. If the parts are not symmetrical in themselves, then they could not be beautiful. So this fact leads to an absurd conclusion according to Plotinus, namely, a beautiful object could be composed of ugly parts. Plotinus does not suggest that symmetry is irrelevant or unnecessary for beauty. His point is that symmetry cannot be the only standard by which to measure an object's beauty. Now let's talk about another perspective of beauty, which is closely in connection, or if not in relevance, with Plotinus, and that is from Saint Augustine. So Saint Augustine, in the aesthetic theory of Plotinus, shares a lot of more or less very similar thoughts. Now, Saint Augustine have much in common in understanding of the beautiful. He said the pagan mysticism of Plotinus and his reliance on the Platonic tradition allowed him to develop an ascensional aesthetic theory. So Plotinus' theory actually maintains the objectivity of beauty alongside other transcendental properties of a being. And so the soul, first understanding the lower beauties of the sensible world, ascends to a higher beauties such as the virtues, the noble conduct, and the soul, and finally to the supreme beauty of the one. So beauty on earth is actually a reflection of the beauty of the one. That is according to Saint Augustine. So basically, uh, Augustine's aesthetics is also ascensional, and there is a clear evidence of the inspiration that he received from Plotinus. The objective beauty is again defended here because St. Augustine's thought on beauty encourages the soul to ascend from the sensible things of the world, which are not evil or unworthy of attention, towards an intelligible beauty, and finally to God. So the dynamic is very similar to Plotinus, and what makes the essential difference in this system is that the incarnation and of course Saint Augustine's faith, because he provided here the finality which is to God, and it expresses so much faith. So he equates beauty with God, and as such the Son of Man is also an absolute beauty. If you could recall, Saint Augustine did said that uh, man man is created according to his own image and likeness. Hence, he considered that the Son of Man is an absolute beauty because it is created according to God's own image and likeness. And so, this difference in the aesthetic beauty of Saint Augustine allows one to actually reach the beauty for which all men have really longed for, right? So, the difference in Augustine's philosophy of beauty should be given the notice, which is very much in due by the church today. Why? Because the importance of beauty in a world of ugliness is more urgent for the modern world than in the times past, right? So, we as Catholics should recognize the essential role beauty plays in encouraging the mind's in order to ascend to God. So that is the philosophical perspective of beauty according to Saint Augustine. Now let's talk about another saint's philosophical perspective of beauty, and that is from Saint Thomas Aquinas. According to Saint Thomas Aquinas, he said, uh, actually he is a typical Aristotelian, and so uh, he uses here, of course, a typical Aristotelian pluralist formulation, and he says that there are three requirements for beauty. So first, uh, that is integrity or perfection. So for if something is impaired for him, it is ugly. Then there is this due, proportion, or consonance. And last, there should be clarity. Hence, things that are brightly colored are called beautiful. That's according to Saint Thomas Aquinas. So, um, besides everything that we have been talking about, let me ask you this. Is there beauty in ugliness? Have you ever think about it? Is there such beauty in ugliness? Or when can we actually say that the thing or the person is totally, absolutely full of ugliness? So you see, actually, the way I see it, ugliness is deserve. How would I say? Ugliness deserves to be understood, but when you actually examine it, the idea disappears. Why? Because ugliness is like embracing a fog. Um, it is, for example, quite possible to look at steaming, formulating landfill, and then see a thing of beauty in it. So that for me is ugliness. How about you? What do you think of ugliness? If you have some thoughts, please share and post it in the comment box. So now let's talk about the concept of physical self in psychology. Scientifically, however, this important aspect of ourselves seems to have lost somewhere between the Eastern detachment and the Western narcissism. So much that sufficient theoretical development in this issue is lacking. So however, though, directly or indirectly, the discussion on physical self has found a place in various schools of psychology, like the psychoanalysis, the behaviorism, and the humanism, and some others, with some of its most ardent exponents and followers dealing with the issue in varying proportions. So let us now tackle the different psychological perspectives, starting with William James. According to James, he considered body as the initial source of sensation and necessary for the origin and as well as the maintenance of personality. However, James considered body as subservient to the mind. So, for example, a mere mental concentration can be so tightly focused so as not only to vanish an ordinary sensations, but at the same time, it is going to vanish the severest pain. That is according to William James. And another example of this perspective is that it could be about the soldiers who are in a battle or a boxer who are in a ring who is fighting or if not playing the game, but who is actually suffering a severe wounds but do not notice them until the intensity of the fighting abates. So for James, the body is an expressive tool of indwelling consciousness and a good physical health is something that wells up from every part of the body of a muscularly well trained human being and soaks the indwelling soul in him with satisfaction. It is an element of spiritual hygiene of supreme significance. So, that is the perspective of physical self from William James. Now let's talk about the perspective of Sigmund Freud, who is actually very famous in his psychoanalytical school. For Freud, he said that the construction of self and personality makes the physical body the core of human experience. Freud was of the view that the ego is first and foremost a body ego. And in spite of Freud's recognition of the centrality of body, his writing, however, on therapy rarely discuss it. So among the Western theorists, here comes a name. Wilhelm Reich seems to probably most concerned um, his writings about the body, which is a bit in contrast with Freud. So, according to him, the freeing of the block bioenergy is the chief tasks of psychotherapy. So, Reach argued that mind and body are one, and all psychological processes he postulated are a part of the physical process and vice versa. So, for Reach, body is essential dynamic in all psychological functions, and all psychological functioning, and it plays a critical role in storing and channeling the bioenergy, which is the basis of the human existence and experiences at the same time. Now, for Eric Erickson, experience is anchored in the ground plan of the body. According to him, the role of the body or the role of the bodily organs is especially important in early developmental stage of a person's life. And later in life, the development of the physical as well as the intellectual skills will help determine whether the individual will actually achieve a sense of competence and ability to choose demanding roles in a complex society. So, for example, uh, healthy children derive from a sense of competence as their bodies become larger, stronger, and faster, and more capable of learning complex skills. However, as a stage theorist, according to Erickson, he is actually aware of the constant interaction of the body and also the psychological processes and social forces. He acknowledges the classical Freudian view of fundamental biological drives, but he insisted that these drives are socially modifiable. That is according to um, Erickson. Now let's talk about Carl Gustav Jung. In his exposition to analytical psychology, he didn't deal explicitly with the role of the body and chose to direct his efforts to analyzing the psyche only. Uh, he has argued that physical processes are never relevant to us only to the extent that they are represented in the psyche. So the physical body and the external world can be known only as a psychological experiences. And he said that I'm chiefly concerned with the psyche itself. Therefore, I'm leaving out body and spirit. So for him, the body and spirit are mere aspects of the reality of the psyche, and that psyche psychic experience is the only immediate experience, and body is as metaphysical as the spirit only. That's according to Carl Gustav Hall. Now let's talk about B.F. Skinner. Uh, Actually, Skinner was a staunch behaviorist, and for him, the role of body is of primary importance. For Skinner, the terms personality, self are mere explanatory fictions, and all there is the body. However, in spite of this, body never truly interested the Skinner. So he treats human being as an open but certainly not an empty box. So quite ironic perspective here, but I hope you get his point that he actually believed that um, humans are humans are actually an open but certainly not an empty box. So that's for Skinner. Now let's talk about Abraham Maslow and Carl Rogers, in which two of the most prominent figures of the humanist tradition and have not discussed in detail the role of body in the process of self-actualization. However, according to Maslow's need of hierarchy theory, once the physiological needs of a person are met, he said, the individual becomes more concerned with the higher order of needs, and so he writes that the body be given its due. So, asceticism, self denial, deliberate rejection of the demands of organism are, at least in the West, which tend to produce a diminished, stunted, or crippled organism, and even in the East, which brings self actualization only to a very few exceptionally strong individuals. That is according to Abraham Maslow. On the other hand, Carl Rogers, in spite of the evidences that his person centered work is focused on the physical feelings, but he has not given special attention to the role of the body. So, those are the different psychological perspectives of the physical self from those brilliant psychologists.